Welcome, Sheldon. Thank you for your time, first and foremost, and welcome. How are you?
Hi, Daniel. I'm great. Thank you.
It's great to see you, like everyone else or many in the audience, enjoying the summer weather there in the UK and making us all jealous.
Very much so. Yeah. 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 Underground was very hot yesterday morning. Mm.
Oh, I can only imagine what that was like. I was there in March. I was actually at Cambridge in March, which was the highlight of the trip, and the underground was hot then. Like, I don't know how it goes when it's over 30. But look, very much appreciate your time. Um, for the benefit of the audience, is it possible for you to give a quick introduction of your background and what you've also done since completing the program?
Sure. So my current role, I work as a data engineer at Capgemini. And in this role, I get the opportunity to leverage some of the skills that I've gained during my course and then also develop further skills. Prior to that, I was working in public transport. I'd been with the same company for a very long time, doing different roles, working my way through the company till eventually I became a data engineer. And then going forward, I can see myself taking a lot more of the skills I'm currently learning that I've built on from the Career Accelerator and then moving into some type of role in the future. It's not going to be data science, that's for sure. Um, It'll be something AI engineering of some sort.
Sounds amazing, and the future is rosy for those with this and your skill set, and the transferable skills, no matter what the background, is always valued by employers, as I'm sure you're aware. But let's go back, I guess, to your process of identifying that you would like to develop your skills in a particular area, your search for what was available out there to you. I guess what made you start looking for a program such as this to enhance your skills?
So in my previous role, I was going to a lot of these summits, like data engineering summits, and over the course of a couple of years, I saw a market shift. So where people were talking a lot more about data engineering and new technologies relating to that and how to support it, seeing more AI technologies come through. And I realized I needed to do something. I kind of got stuck in my role. I felt like I wasn't going to progress very easily unless somebody left and there might be an opportunity to move up. And, and I've done that in the past and I'm 48 now. It's kind of, I felt like I had to take the bulls by the horn and I had to make some kind of, I had to be proactive. And I'd looked around at the time. I'd considered doing a master's in data science. I even approached the company I was working for to see if they would help sponsor that because I worked as, um, but yeah, I didn't make any traction with that. But then also, my concern was that was going to be a 3-year course. So when I came across this career accelerator, the first thing that attracted me was there was a lot available, and I could get upskilled within a very short period of time. That was the biggest selling point for me. And obviously it comes from Cambridge, so I thought, okay, it's not going to be some kind of like Mickey Mouse course that somebody's just chucked together type of thing. There's going to be some kind of continuation or validation of the course.
Yeah, that's understandable. Um, Thank you for that. It brings us to, I guess, and we don't want to dive into anything overly personal, but many people do suffer what we call imposter syndrome and things like that. Did you have any worries before starting the program, and how did they play out once you were in there?
I've been, no, not really for myself personally, because I've done a lot of online courses prior. I could go back 20 years ago. I started as, you know, uh, the company I was with prior to that, I was working as a bus driver. And I'm that generation that, we came out of school without Microsoft Word and Excel. So I had to kind of, even at that point, I realized I had to upskill and I started putting myself on courses. And, at some point I was like, okay, I can't do, and as a bus driver, you're doing shift work. You can't do night school, you can't do, specific days. So online learning worked for me. And so over the years, I developed my skills with the likes of Open University, Oxford University, and then finally Cambridge. So I understood what was expected from me and understood the sacrifices that I'd have to make.
It's a good point. There are sacrifices. How rigorous did you find the timetable, so to speak? It's not really a timetable other than the live sessions, but the commitment required in the program.
Yeah, I think there was it varied by module and from week to week. Um, but I knew that I was going to need to put some of my extracurricular activities behind me. So where I was going to gym, 4 times a week or something, I stopped going during the week and I just go do park run on a Saturday, type of thing. So it was like finishing work and then spending like 3 hours a night, kind of like going through things. But I always knew that, when there's a quiet time, is to try and work ahead of schedule as much as I can, because at some point life gets in the way. Something's going to
Yep.
come up, and then you're going to have a delay. So by working as far ahead as I can, then at least I can stay on track.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Communicating with others around you, your desire to invest in yourself, be it for the benefit of the family through your career earnings or your friendship circle. Not I can't go out every Friday night like I used to. I've got studies. Just making others aware of your investment in yourself, and it's then the commitment to yourself, the discipline of sometimes when you don't feel like it, making a start for an evening, for example, or of a morning sometimes for some people. And sometimes after a big long day and after the heat of the tube or whatever it is, you won't feel like studying. You'll sit down, you'll do 10 minutes and you'll say, no, tonight's not the night. Other times you'll sit down and you'll do 3 hours and you'll think, thank God I actually sat down to start, because I wouldn't have done that had I not pushed myself. There is a lot of self-discipline involved that you've correctly pointed out, Sheldon, and it's good to get ahead when you can rather than take the foot off the accelerator, but it is rigorous. As you've said, it's some weeks are certainly more and some weeks are less, but the average of 20 seems accurate for most. Was there anything that surprised you most about the program or how it was delivered?
The career coaching was particularly useful to me. I mean, self admission, I haven't utilized all that was available to me. Um, but I think, yeah, my circumstances were different. So, but the conversations I did have with my career coach gave me enough to, and a big part for towards getting, or because I was headhunted by an agency for my current role, and it was definitely it was off the back of that conversation with the career coach, looking at things like my LinkedIn profile and how I can make myself more visible in a data science type of way. And I found, that conversation I still found difficult because I didn't have data science skills. I was a data engineer, but trying to then translate what I do have into my current role. So things like, creating, I created a Substack, which was in part for my learning, just to track what I was doing. And it was useful for me to then go back, because in a number of weeks when you've done something, it's like, oh, what was I doing with key values? What was this? What was that? And I can read back and go, okay, just as a quick refresher. But it also then created that visibility on LinkedIn. And that's how people then notice me. And then whoever, this agency, they worked with Capgemini and they were familiar with their ethos around development and their strategy around AI, and then they knew obviously what my skill set was as a data engineer. So they were like, you have to go for this interview. And at the time, I wasn't even interested in going for the interview. I was just like, yeah, I was happy where I was, and I was kind of thinking, yeah, I'll do the course, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do that. But yeah, I kind of got pushed into the interview, and it went well. So yeah, so I think the career coaching was for me one of the key things.
Yeah. And then just a reminder for everyone, and someone's posted a very specific question relating to themselves that I'll touch on in depth shortly. For everyone else, pop your questions in the Q&A. We'll get to them very, very shortly as well. My next question, or some of the most common questions we receive as well. I guess a lot of people, you mentioned you were headhunted. Um, did in the interview process the fact that you were studying with Cambridge and the data science skills obtained come up in that process?
Yeah, feedback from the recruiter on the first interview. There was a he'd obviously sent me an email, and there was a specific part of that where they noted my my development around AI with Cambridge, which now where I am in the role makes sense. I'm like, okay, that's why they were that interested in it. So yeah, because yeah, they do value development and learning. There's a whole learning platform and all that types of things. So they, Capgemini look for people with those type of, that attitude, of continual learning.
Yep. If it's possible, what I think we should do for the audience benefit is just give them an understanding of the things that they will learn along the way. And then before I go over to the questions from the audience, we'll touch on the employer project as well if we can. So course one, applying statistics and core data science techniques in business. What's that look like from a technical perspective? If you can think back to that.
The first module,
Yeah,
the
developing
data
critical
science stuff.
statistical thinking
Oh,
and
the
problem.
hypothesis stuff. Yeah, that was really, I found that challenging because I wasn't, that was probably one area or the one module that I actually struggled with because I wasn't familiar with it. I think everything else after all those other modules made much more sense to me. But I found it really useful to be able to do things like evaluation metrics and to be able to justify your analysis in a mathematical approach, which I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
That's good to hear. Then that runs for 6 weeks. There is a 2-week window following that in which learners do submit their mini and major project to round that off before we start on course 2, which is solving business problems with supervised learning. Any insights into the technical aspects of that particular course?
Supervised learning. Did we do did we do the things around the fleet, the ship maintenance, predictive
Yes, that would have
maintenance,
been
which
course 2.
again, that was really useful to me because in my previous role, we actually had a discussion. I wasn't obviously, in the midst of that discussion, but how AI can do predictive maintenance for buses. So doing that, I went, oh wow, okay, this is how we could leverage that in the same type of way. So that became like a real world. That became one of my first kind of real world examples of how I can utilize what I'm learning.
Course 3 is a bit more in depth. It runs for 10 weeks, and there is a week's break in the middle of that. Applying advanced data science techniques, so diving deeper into advanced machine learning, NLP, and time series analysis and the like. Any insight into that before we touch on the employer project?
Yeah, so we were doing things around, was it Finbert? So right. And unstructured data. Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything that stood out.
TensorFlow, time series, neural networks, and deep learning.
Yeah, the neural network stuff was interesting. I mean, I think even the theoreticals around, how a neural network came about, and it was a psychologist and I don't know, I can't even remember that, some brain guy or something, some math or mathematician, and yeah, and that relationship between a brain and a neural network. Yeah. What else was there? We did, yeah. I can't. It has been a while now. Sorry, Dan.
No, that's fine. So a normal week in the life of a learner, you have your module online, which is a mix of research. There's video content. There's all the modules you click through within the virtual learning environment. You've got a live session with the academics per week. What else does a week look like from a learner perspective?
Yeah, so there was I think when I initially started, we used to have two calls a week, which were essentially the same call, but then it changed to a a presentation and then questions and answers. So yes, I'd either be going to the presentation or watching the videos. So I kind of structured my week because I wanted to keep my weekends free. So I'd work from Monday, and quite often I could finish by Thursday. Except when it came to the employee project, that was another thing altogether. And yeah, so it was like, literally reading through course material for maybe a couple of days, and then spending a couple of days on the um, portfolio activity. And then obviously then adding in some of those videos or those presentations.
So that's brilliant. So everything that you're working towards helps you build that portfolio. And if we don't mind later on, for the audience benefit, we'll share your Substack so they can have a look at and trace your learning journey along the way. I think it's a brilliant piece for people to see, but to see also how you can leverage that from an eyeballs on it perspective, even if it's recruiters looking out for that as well. So then, cause for the future of data science, generative AI, human AI, all those sorts of things, but then the employer project. Let's dive into that quickly. You did yours with Bank of England, I assume. What was that like?
Challenging. It was,
Tell
yeah,
us about that.
it was a real world example. I mean, I don't know how in the back end how you decided who was on teams, but actually when our team came together and we started talking about our skill set, you kind of go, oh wow, this hasn't been accidental. They haven't just chucked like 6 people together or 5 people together. There was people's previous experiences lended well. And I think for me that was kind of interesting because there was somebody who'd had like 15 years of project management experience. It was like, well, I don't want to do project management. I want to do something else. And I was in the same boat as well. I was kind of like, well, I don't want to be doing data ingestion and data cleansing or something or whatever. And I want to do something. But I must have had a call actually with my career coach around that time, and something kind of, I realized something that I wasn't going to be moving into a data science role. It's not going to happen. I'm not that mathematically inclined. I'm much more functional in my approach. And so how can I leverage the skills I learned in data engineering? And for that project, I was like, okay, well, being part of an AI project as a data engineer still has value in it. So even if I start, even if I go for an interview, I'm going for an interview for an AI company because there's going to be a lot of companies that are heading that way. Everybody's going to have some kind of experience or skills around AI, and they're going to have to be able to communicate, those challenges and those benefits and around AI. So I was like, pretty much, okay, fine, I'll do data engineer. But I also did lead the project initially because I'd worked in an agile environment. So I had that, so I could kind of like set up our team communication and what was the expectations. And then later on, I had some surgery. So it gave somebody else a chance to kind of lead on that, who initially was reluctant, but then later on was like, yeah, I want to do that. But it was a lot of work. I think that was the bit where, when you're saying 20 hours a week, I think it felt like more. For me, it was useful. It was because I was actually transitioning. So I had my 2 month notice in my previous role. I didn't end up doing a lot of work over those 2 months anyway. So I could focus all my time on the project. So that was kind of useful, you know. Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the things to bear in mind is that project is challenging, but it's more challenging from the perspective of team communication and team dynamics and making sure that everybody's doing their bits. And then how does everything all fit in together? Because on the
Yeah.
face of it, actually, when you look at it, you could just go, well, all 6 of us, all 5 of us will go off and do our own thing, and then come back together, and then you can do that, but that's not the benefit of that project. The benefit of the project is working together as a team to deliver a final output.
And that shared learning that comes along the way, as you mentioned, and sometimes taking that step outside of your comfort zone for the benefit of learning. You articulated that so well when we started speaking of that. For the audience benefit, and forgive me if this question, if you can't answer it due to NDAs and the like, sometimes many of our projects are subject to non-disclosure agreements with our commercial partners. But can you give the audience, if possible, an overview of what was the topic or what the problem was you were solving with the Bank of England?
It was to provide a unified insight it's probably one way. So it's very similar to the project I'm working on at the moment, where we are, we're bringing in technical documentation, and then you're going to have at least one part of this project was, a means of somebody being able to query a set of data, be that different types of banks, to be able to get some kind of insight into trends or sentiment or something like that. So we approached it, and we had our RAG chatbot, or we'd use things like some other kind of model to be able to provide like sentiment analysis, for example. Yeah.
And you received amazing feedback from the bank at that presentation as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I think they were quite useful. I think also the one thing that's stuck up, because this is an evolving landscape. We had a call with somebody on your team initially, and I think agentic was just beginning to be a conversation. So I was impressed. By the time we actually got to our final project, there was a section on agentic to some degree, or it probably wasn't as fleshed out as what it could be, but yeah, it is such an evolving landscape, and it's so quick. Every 6 months, something's changing. So to be able to provide something at that point that you can then leverage, that's cutting edge, or I don't even know if it's cutting edge, but it's happening now into your course, has its benefits. But of course, there is also the downside, is that to quickly get something out, there is going to sometimes be problems with the course material. And so being able to flag that and go, well, that's not really accurate, can somebody fix it? And being aware of it and having that change, and at least for then, for the current cohort, being aware of what that issue is and how it's been rectified, and then for the next cohort, that's being solved. But those are the challenges that we're working with, because we're not sitting with some kind of technology or industry that's pretty much well known and stagnant, and we understand all the problems, and so
That's a really good point you raise. It's almost dynamic in the sense that we update the content continuously because it is evolving that quickly. And I'd ask the audience to question any provider that you're speaking with, how old is the content? Because as you said, if it's more than 6 or 12 months, there's a fair chance that you're learning things that have been superseded potentially already. Now, don't get me wrong, there's principles and there's academic rigor and things like that that will certainly stand the test of time to a degree, but the tools, languages, and processes that are taught are up to the minute, as up to the minute as we can make it, always with that industry lens as well, which is the important part of the content. Right. Questions from the audience. Let's get into a couple. And they're specific to individuals, but let's do our best. So, Anonymous, I feel for you, first of all, genuinely. You're going through a redundancy, which is never, ever good. However, in our experience and when speaking with coaches, it's often the best thing that's happened to many. Should you be able to turn it into an opportunity? So, just for the audience benefit, this attendee is going through a redundancy with a decade or more experience as a data analyst, strong technical skills in SQL, Python, Power BI, forecasting and automation, and a recent distinction level 4 data analyst apprenticeship, passionate about continuing their career in data science and analysis, but the job market has been difficult, especially with the reality of ageism. Before committing to a significant financial investment in your program, I want to clarify, what concrete job opportunities can Career Accelerator realistic offer someone like me? Firstly, it's you offering that of yourself. It's not that we offer you career outcomes. We enable you to accelerate your intended outcome through hyper-relevant learning, the content that I've mentioned, and secondly, the support that we give you, that we're passionate about, enabling you to bring most of those opportunities to the fore for yourself. And we've touched on a number of ways in which we do that, and I'm happy to touch on more. Just so everyone is aware, though, us here at Fourth Rev, our whole North Star metric is career outcomes. And I'll give you an example, actually. I think it's timely that I do this. So we started the model with career coaching once a month for the 6 months or 7 months of the program, and very quickly learned that most people were focusing on the learning during that time, not so much applying for jobs. So the first thing we've done is extend the career coaching beyond the completion of the program, ensuring you have that most valuable career support at the time in which you most need it, which is the time in which you're applying for roles, firstly. Secondly, we innovate that all the time. The one thing that was missing, we felt, was the shared learning. Sheldon mentioned so eloquently the value of shared learning in the employer project. The coaches have innovated what we call career sprints. So it might be a dozen of you um, on a similar pathway that attend these career sprints. I think they're once a fortnight or so, where you take concrete, actionable items away from that, but you obtain shared learning. So, as an example, your weakness might be LinkedIn or networking via events and or LinkedIn. In the career sprint, that might be someone's strength. So they're going to say, well, I did this on LinkedIn and I reached out to 10 people. The approach wasn't working. So I pivoted and I took this approach and 7 people came back to me. Wow, what was that? I'll use that, in my outreach. It could be that your concrete outcome is that you're going to take Sheldon's example of his Substack and see how that worked for him and start your own to document your learning journey for the benefit of those either that are web scraping for people with skills such as this or just genuinely interested from a recruited perspective. Those career sprints and that shared learning is proving to be invaluable. So we're always innovating how we can further support your career outcome as well. Do you have partnerships with employers actively hiring? Yes. We don't have a formal relationship with an employer that says we're going to take 5 graduates of the program. We don't have a job placement opportunity because or a internship or anything like that because you're above that. Our learners are above that. You're not entry level. So what we do have is relationships with employers where you do those, where there might be, sorry, firstly, you might get guest appearances or master classes, or there might be a recruiter that conducts a session for you during the course. Then obviously you're going to have exposure to very senior people in industry through that employer facing project where job outcomes have occurred, and we're expanding our employer network the whole time. Anything, Sheldon, you wanted to add in relation to the support of that or the interaction with the employers during the project?
Um, I can't think of anything. No.
So the next question here is, are interviews or job placements facilitated? I've sort of touched on that. No, but the career coaches work so closely with you and develop such a deep sense of trust with you. They're going to tell you no sometimes. No, that job is not right for you. Here is what you said your values are. Here is what the company stands for. There's a mismatch. You wanted a breadth of learning. That's a large corporate environment in which you're going to have less a broad aspect to the data science role than what you're looking for. Whatever the example is, they're certainly going to say that's a great fit for you, or at times they're going to be honest with you and say, look, these are the reasons I feel it's not a good fit for you. But they'll give you every tool required for you to undertake a very, very successful career search and execute on your goals. That's the whole outcome of the program. Placement success rates or success stories, especially for professionals over 45. I don't think, Sheldon, that 45 would be seen as overly mature in the program. Do you feel that your peer group is of like ilk? Is that fair to say? I'm stepping on eggshells here. I don't want to be ageist, but look at me. I was around before Microsoft Office came out as well. Is that fair to say it's a mature learner cohort?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think most of the people, even on my team, were in their mid 40s. And then there was the odd person who was like 20 something, and just starting out. So, yeah.
Yep, exactly. It's 70% of our learners are looking to change careers, 30% are looking to advance their existing careers. However, many of our learners aren't necessarily seeking a specific career outcome. They're looking to add skills to their current portfolios, be they PhD candidates. We've got many of them learning with us. Others are in their current managerial position, knowing that data is driving business outcomes and they're wanting to learn that because they've got a team of data analysts or scientists under them. So there's all different motivations to learn, but I'm really pleased you asked that question because it is a very mature learner cohort. I'm not looking for generic advice or career support. I'm asking about the tangible outcomes that could justify the cost. Absolutely. Hopefully that certainly demonstrated. But with your considerable life experience, with your considerable skills already and your new skills through this, I think you'd be in very high demand. Couple that with the coaching to help your transferable and new skills shine, as Sheldon did. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised and in demand in many sectors as well. Someone's asked here, with only knowledge of Google Analytics, Looker Studio, and Excel, no prior experience with machine learning or programming skills in languages such as Python and R, is it still possible to apply and complete the courses, or is it programmed to advance for me? I might ask Sheldon, and I've got something to say there as well. Thank you for the question, whoever that was. There's certainly been learners that have been successful in that in the program with a very similar background. But Sheldon, what are your thoughts on taking that step once one learns the basics of Python?
Yeah, you do need some kind of understanding of programming. You can't just come into this course with nothing. You need to understand obviously variable declarations, loops, functions, conditional logic, those types of, at least those basics, data frames, data sets. But I suppose in some aspects, the world's moved on. There's this whole thing about vibe coding. So you've always got help from there's a Python
Felipe?
who can help you answer your questions. But nowadays it's just like, hey, you got ChatGPT, just put it in there and go and get an answer. How many people still go on Substack? I don't know. I think the amount of posts on Substack seem to be getting a lot less. They'll go back to 2022. Nobody's really posting anymore. So it's leveraging the tools that you have available.
Exactly. And sorry, go on.
Yeah, so but you do need some kind of understanding of programming. You can't get away without it.
Well put. And the best thing you can do to learn more about that for the audience member that asked is book a time with your enrollment advisor. They might give you the analogy that it's with your background, it's a bit like going from nursing to surgery without becoming a doctor in between. It's a big step. However, if you feel you're at that doctor level, it's not as big a step. So there'd certainly be learning to do. We do have another career accelerator that the enrollment advisor might be able to speak to you about as well. Next question, Chris. Thank you for your input, Chris. Sheldon mentioned that it's first 3/4 of that for the first 3/4 of the course, he was able to complete his study during work weeks and be off on the weekends. Did it still take you an average of 20 hours? If so, what was his time management secret, assuming he was working full time and having personal commitments? Great question, Chris. Sheldon, how did you do it?
For me, it's consistency. So
Discipline.
you need to be, you have to be dedicated and you have to put that time in. As I said, some weeks where there was less reading, there might be more coding, or there might be more reading, less coding. And so it was just making sure that every day I'm doing something, because I know from experience, you take your foot off the pedal for a few days, or for a week, you're then behind, then you spend your time trying to catch up. Yeah, that's really the secret to it. It's just being consistent, just keep going.
Yeah, as you said, also communicating with those that might be impacted by your need to dedicate that time.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's
and
challenging.
yeah, and it's good to paint the bigger picture as to what you're striving to achieve for their benefit. Often in the case of family, especially, I always recommend that. And then their pride in seeing mum or dad or brother or sister or whoever it may be being accepted into Cambridge and flourishing as a result is something that's a great example for children, for example, or for teenagers. All sorts of benefits that flow from that as well. Thank you, Chris. Um, Sacrifice, commitment, and consistency are the keys, and leaning on the supports that are available to you. There is a team of success managers that are available to support you with anything that might come your way, or any barriers that you may encounter, help you overcome. There's an industry mentor that hosts drop-in live sessions on a regular basis, as well as the Cambridge academics and the career coaches. So you've got heaps of support behind you during the program. It's about leveraging that where required as well. Someone's also said, I'm changing my career. My programming skill is limited to Python beginner. I want to join a boot camp. Do you think it's best to prepare from my side and then join a boot camp or jump straight to boot camp? So this isn't a boot camp. This is very, very different to a boot camp. And you're elevating yourself well above those that are choosing to do a boot camp. There's a need for boot camps. I think it's a great model for those entering the workforce potentially as recent graduates and the like to enhance some of their specific skills that make them employable. This is at a completely different level with the academic rigor from Cambridge and the partners such as the Bank of England you'll be exposed to, which really shine on your resume. The timing has to be right. You need to make the most of the investment, both time and money that you're looking to invest in yourself. So I do recommend ensuring the time is correct, but there's no time like the present, or in my experience, something always comes up as well. So it is about speaking with your enrollment advisor, speaking also with those around you around and identifying what is your barrier truly and how can we help you either overcome it, or we might turn around and say, look, yes, you're right, this course isn't for you. Here's another option, or here's what we recommend to do before entering the course. I know, previously I'd recommended on one of our other career accelerators that they do a mini MBA prior because they didn't really have the professional experience, and there was a challenge relating to them getting that, and they went and did that and benefited greatly from it because they had that business acumen or some level of business experience behind them to make the most of this, which is, whilst technical, heavily business focused as well. But a great question, and please do book a time with your enrollment advisor. Next one, Eugenio, as an alternative to the traditional career route, considering the difficulty after a certain age, could you help if a learner wanted to become a freelance or contractor, for example? Sheldon, any thoughts on that? I certainly can assist there.
Yeah. I don't have an answer for that. Yeah, I don't know. It's not my field of expertise, and I mean, I'd be interested to do something like that in the future. To go freelance or whatever. But yeah, so whatever advice you have, Daniel, I'd be happy to hear it as well.
Yeah, certainly. I think many people undertaking these skills that are relevant across a changing landscape now are very well positioned for consulting or contracting, freelance. And that's also part of a coach's remit, is to identify how you'll be able to not only um, help your clientele grow through shining the skills that you have, but tips in ways in which other learners have adapted and done that as well. So I think it's an abundant opportunity for many. If you think about how many organizations, well, all organizations really are going through their digital transformation, not all of them have an idea how to do it. Not many have an idea about the implementation of AI strategies and the like, but more so using data is still, whilst we feel it's been around forever, and it certainly has in various shapes and forms, it's still quite young in the way it's adopted by many businesses, small, medium, and large in many ways. I spoke with a very large organisation the other day that really didn't have an understanding as to how all of their thousands of employees were using AI individually, be that as an individual, be that as a team or as a department. There was no controls over that, quite frighteningly. And the data that is born from that too would be invaluable for an all of company approach. That would be perfect for a consultant or freelance to come in and assist with that and look at their data sets. And when I say organise them, use them in a way that has the most impact for the business. Thank you, Eugenio. I hope that helps, but the world is your oyster in that regard. David Van Ham. David, I feel that the program goes very deep in data analysis, but how deep does it go in terms of coding, especially when it comes to learning how to program AI bots? Sheldon, this is right up your alley. If you could answer this question of David's.
Program. I mean, you'll find a lot of what you do. There's going to be similar patterns with your like your model initializations and I'm trying to go back. But when you use something like OpenAI, if you're using GPT-4, or I think even by the summer will be 5, programmatically, we're not just talking about ChatGPT. There's an API. So once you understand how to connect to your API and how to, send a request and receive a request. It's fairly straightforward.
And you led the AI-powered NLP pipeline implementation during that project. Was that Finbert, Bert Topic, and I don't even know what this is,
Yeah,
retrieval
the BERT
generation?
topic, yeah, the BERT topic stuff was what some of the other team looked at. So I just did a RAG chatbot with OpenAI. So obviously the RAG bit is for the company documentation, which is similar to what I'm working on. As I mentioned, something else similar I'm working on at the moment where I'm not using Colab notebooks for things like vectorization or chunking or whatever. I'm using Azure AI Search. I'm not using Colab notebooks to add in my model logic and put in my prompts. I'm now using Azure Function Apps. Yeah, I'm not outputting my questions into Colab notebooks. I'm now using Azure Web Apps, so creating a proper interface. But all those skills that I've learned on that course was immediately transferable. It's just using different technologies, different resources. So I'm learning more about how to spin up a resource, how to use a resource rather than, because I already know, okay, I need to do vectorization or something. So how can I productionize it for for the likes of some large organization rather than just myself doing a presentation for the Bank of England.
Exactly. And another attendee has asked during the final project, in case your team is bad at collaborating, is there a kind of support or guidance from the mentors to help the team align on the project goals so that your project does not go wild in spite of having the right skills? Very good question. Yes, in simple terms. Although a lot of the onus is put onto leaders within the team. It's part of the development. As Sheldon mentioned, he took a leadership role within the team, and that can rotate between team members under certain circumstances. But in that extreme case, if something was to go awry, yes, there's certainly a great deal of support, even from Dr. Ali at Cambridge if needs be. But there'll be a manager that oversees it from both the academic side, but also the support side, if and when required. We are very strategic as to how we put teams together. We don't want five fintech-based accountants on the same team. It would be boring. We do want that diverse range of skills, sometimes geographies, but also backgrounds, enabling that shared learning, as Sheldon so well articulated that earlier. So we don't really witness it often, and everyone's in it for the right reasons. It's a much more mature learner cohort than, say, you might experience immediately after undergrad or in an undergrad program. So I think the level of maturity prevents a lot of that occurring in the first place, as does the excitement in which people have about working on the types of projects we do. One last one before we go. Eugenio's got a personal. Let me just read this first. I agree. So Eugenio's mentioned that there's still challenges in the workplace around people looking for um, masters and PhD qualified candidates. And I definitely agree, Eugenio, when there's many masters out there that we compare more of us to than boot camps, for example, more of our content or and structure to than boot camps that haven't been changed in 2 years, and that to demand that of an applicant. Um, the one thing that the the one thing that employers were resolute on when we first engaged, as we do with all of our career accelerators, was the fact that they were frustrated at recruiting masters and PhD graduates, exactly what you've just mentioned, that didn't have an understanding of the business application of the technical. That was their number one thing, the barrier that they had to actually expanding. So they had a great insight for us to work with, but also great interest in the graduates from this program to see how that's come about. So, Eugenio, I empathise with that. Again, the career coaches would have very, very um, meaningful strategies to overcome that in certain ways, and educate. But the one thing we'd like to do a little more of is interview some of the employers that have recruited our graduates. We haven't done that yet for this program, but that's something that was raised recently that we'd love to look into and provide you insights into, because it's often a case where someone's obtained a role and that new employer sent someone else to do the career accelerator, seeing the value of what that person bring to the organisation, which we hope continues, obviously. So now is about, for the audience, taking the next step. Be that speaking to those around you, be that taking a firm next step in submitting your application to secure your placement. And if you haven't done so, speaking with your enrolment advisor. They're the two steps that will take you to your next step towards achieving your career outcome. So you've taken one today. You're not out in the sun as many of the other 13,000 people that have inquired about the program are. You're actually dedicating time to yourself here, and that is a great step forward for you. The next step is more solid in making a commitment to yourself, and I implore you to do so, and we'll support you with anything that we can enabling that to occur. Book a time with your enrolment advisor or submit your application, and we'll support you the rest of the way. Then it's high time to thank Sheldon. I've been fascinated with your insight, Sheldon, and what an inspiring story you have provided for those in attendance and for those that watch the replay. Bus driver to data engineer and now working on AI-powered solutions for business. It is an amazing story, and one that I'm sure everyone in the audience has equally been inspired by. Thank you for so much of your insights and time today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Daniel. It's been fantastic talking to you and
It's
sharing my time. So,
It's our absolute pleasure, and you're our inspiration, as all of our learners are, when we see your career outcomes occur, and we will watch them forevermore. Sam in the background, thank you. And a very big thank you to everyone in the audience. Your questions have been insightful and fantastic. Take the next step for yourself, and you've got a lot of support behind you, enabling you to do so. Have a great day. Thanks, Sheldon.